So today we're going to talk about sustainability and inclusive procurement. And as we go through the presentation, we'll talk about, why is it important and, what's the benefit of really having a sustainable and inclusive procurement. So first of all, I think the environmental and social footprint of most businesses exists not only in their own operations, but also in their suppliers. Actually, in fact, 2/3 of the average company's environment, social, and governance footprint lies with suppliers. So we as procurement leaders who take or should take bold action can make a decisive difference in sustainability. And this is really to reduce the footprint. Organizations must develop a formal procurement approach to sustainability and work closely with their suppliers to deliver improvement. So why is this important? From unlocking sustainable cost savings to generating greater revenues, companies have demonstrated that embedding sustainability is really a means of improving both top and bottom line performance. We as procurement executives must plan, invest, and restructure this function to realize these opportunities. Leading players, and I think this is coming from McKinsey directly, stating that are really already capturing real benefits from their efforts. Analysis show that top ESG performers enjoy faster growth and higher valuation than their peers in their sectors. And this is by a margin of 10 to 20% in each case. So strong ESG credentials drive down costs by 5 to 10% as well, as these companies focus on, the reason why, because they focus on operational efficiency and waste reduction. So again, the procurement function has a decisive role to play in shaping an organization's ESG footprint. Going to talk about social purpose and why is it important. And I'm going to give an example of we here at TELUS, what do we do, right? So our social purpose, we are committed to leveraging our world-leading technology and compassion to drive social change and enable remarkable human outcome. Our social purpose is really underpinned by 4 key pillars: empowering Canadians with connectivity, transforming healthcare, caring for the planet that our children, right, will inherit, and naturally giving back to our communities. Throughout this presentation, I'm going to be talking about, why purpose is important and how it relates to sustainability and inclusive procurement from a supplier diversity standpoint. Here are examples of ways that procurement support these objectives. So again, these are, some of the specific things that we at TELUS are doing. So example, 100% net carbon neutral operation by 2030, 100% renewable electricity by 2025. So these are examples that procurement support these objectives. Reduce and sustainability packaging from suppliers or energy efficiency considerations, running RFPs for renewable energy projects, identifying and providing opportunities for diverse suppliers to be included in the RFX process. I think these are all some of examples that you can do, right now to start on your, sustainability journey. TELUS has been recognized by the Wall Street Journal as the only telecom company in the world named to its top 100 most sustainable managed companies. In fact, we ranked 29% overall and 15 in social capital. So going back to purpose is really good for business. Today's customers are more conscious of the social and environmental impact their choices make. And they increasingly choose brands that drive positive social outcomes aligned with their core values. In fact, 94% say it is important for a company to have a purpose, to have purpose. 83% believe that a company should only earn a profit if they are delivering a positive impact. So if a company has a strong purpose, people are 4 times more likely to purchase from that company, 6 times more likely to protect the brand, and 4.5 times more likely to recommend the product, and 4 times more likely to trust the brand. So again, purpose is good for business. And just a real life example in terms of how social purpose has a direct impact on the bottom line. So as an example, we at TELUS, we donated 85 million to charities. That is, 85 million is 5% of pre-tax profits, so given back to community organization. As we have proven time and time again, good business and doing good are really mutually inclusive. So we elevated our corporate reputation and drove significant competitive advantage to TELUS. So as a result, an example, 55% of our customers agree that TELUS gives back, which is an 11% year-over-year lift. 66% of our customers are more likely to stay with us as a result of our social purpose, which is a 7% year-over-year lift. And this, resulted in $212 million in new business revenue influence, which represents 14% of the closed deals. So again, social purpose is good for business. Apology for this chart, it's really of an eyesore, but I wanted to give you an example in terms of where you can start, as a procurement organization, if you're thinking about starting your sustainability practice. So where do you begin? And this is really taken straight from McKinsey. So thank you, McKinsey, for that. I think as procurement organizations, we can build on foundations by taking a holistic approach to the development of ESG focused data, processes, and capability. Such approach would involve 3 basic steps, which together makes sustainability simply part of the way the company does business, starting with what we buy and ends with what we sell and how it supports our customers. So the first step here is really determining the baseline and how far do you want to go. So understanding and quantifying your ESG footprint, identifying the most significant risk areas and improvement opportunities, and determining what matters most in the context of your overall company ESG agenda, and obviously set goals and target for sustainable procurement. Then next, you can work on establishing the core and drive value creation initiatives. So defining those ESG metrics and policies that will be integrated into the organization's standard supplier selection, procurement, and supply management processes. In parallel, you can select a number of top priority ESG themes that address, in-depth cross-functional innovation and improvement initiatives. And that's in collaboration with, value chain partners to, for example, decarbonize emission-intensive areas of the supply chain. And then lastly, shift the organization, scale up and, and roll out these successful initiatives. Integrate sustainable purchasing practices into the organization and continuously upscale the procurement on sustainable procurement principles and their application. And last, track and continue, track and measure and set the standard. And now we're going to talk about a little bit about supplier diversity, or I think the new thing now we call it is inclusive procurement. Supplier diversity has been defined by the UK's Environmental Agency as a process through which equal opportunities are provided to all businesses to compete. So in the US, the Institute for Supply Management defines it as an organization's effort to include different categories of suppliers in its sourcing process and active supply base to address opportunities and challenges that arise from differences and similarity. So in essence, supplier diversity is a proactive business process that encourages economic development for cultural diverse organizations. Supplier diversity programs really delivers an improved and innovative customer experience by taking proactive steps to provide equal access to supply base that reflects, again, going back to the purpose, right? So they reflect the diversity of where we live, work, and serve. It fully aligns with our commitment and passion, to give where we live, and our diversity and inclusion strategy. I think most of you are familiar with that picture or have used it in different contexts, but I love this image because it truly depicts what, equality versus equity. And the point of this picture really is only when, we remove the systematic barrier, right, that we truly providing, equality to everyone, access to everyone. At TELUS specifically, we define supplier diversity program. We define minority-owned business as organizations that are 51% owned and operated and controlled by an individual accredited by one of these parties, showing here on the screen. So Canadian Aboriginal and Minority Supplier Council, Canadian Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce, Women Business Enterprise Canada, Inclusive Workspace, and so forth. In the US, diverse supplier is usually self-declared as being one of these groups, including but not limited to women business enterprises, disabled or disadvantaged business enterprises, veterans, minority-owned business, etc. US and Canada, they have different approaches to supplier diversity. In the US, I think inclusion of diverse supplier became mandatory in 1978 for all federal contracts over $500,000. So this means that the majority of companies have already a robust program in place, dedicated resources, and more than 10% of their spend dedicated to diverse suppliers. I think here in Canada is more like the UK, where initiatives have evolved without any equivalent legislative framework, but founded on competition rules and legislation related to non-discrimination and equality of opportunities. I think seeing, both sides and understanding both sides or both perspectives is important. So you might be asking yourself, where do I get started? How do I, set up my own, inclusive procurement or supplier diversity program? So these are, some of the things that you can start, working on, right now. I think procurement executives looking to implement supplier diversity programs should look at, some of the following things. So first is really build support within the business. That's, I think, the first step before you do anything. Ensure that you have, buy-in from, from your business. The next step is know your suppliers. So identify your baseline, right? Who are your accredited diverse suppliers? What's their spend, direct and indirect, right? Direct because they are accredited, or self-declared if you're in the US as diverse suppliers, or indirect because your, tier one suppliers are working with diverse suppliers. So track and know and track the spend. Second, really, again, spending time and understanding the diverse suppliers' capabilities. Increase opportunities for diverse suppliers to be involved in, your RFX initiatives, innovation initiatives. There are so many things that you can do to increase, diverse suppliers. For example, what we're doing here is, we're adding to our RFX, right, a whole section on diverse supplier, and we're making it part of our evaluation criteria matrix. Same thing for sustainability. We're making them, mandatory in our RFX initiatives, and we're clearly rating, the suppliers based on their sustainability or, diverse suppliers footprint. And of course, measure and monitor and continuous improve. So these are, some of the things that you can, start doing. And again, why is this important? I think Supplier Diversity Program can add $3.6 million to your bottom line for every $1 million of procurement spend and operation costs. So it's really, really triples your bottom line. So for 1 million that you spend, you get, 3 million back. And this is according to a study done by Hackett Group. So companies that include supplier diversity as part of their larger business plan tend to be more profitable than those that do not. And again, as I said, to successfully build a successful supplier diversity program, we need to ensure that we have secure buy-in from your business, your key stakeholders. So that really concludes my presentation. So we talked about, sustainability. We talked about, purpose and how we tie it to, to the bottom line. We talked about inclusive procurement. So I really want to thank you for listening to me, and I'll open it up for questions.
Thank you, Mariam. I do have several questions, actually. It's a really good presentation. Thank you. To begin with, I mean, you talked at length there about, diversity and supplier diversity. What are the primary drivers of a supplier diversity program?
I think, as I mentioned, I think really competitive advantage and revenue growth, right? I think are, I would say the main driver, right? So growing our supplier base more closely to our customer base, enables us to compete more effectively in the marketplace, right? And I think this is where, I was mentioning, doing, give where we live, type of thing. So, and our, our customers, are asking for that. It also supports, your brand. A strong supplier, diversity program, with the scope limited to, where you're operating, really helps with your overall strategy. And it also aligns with, closely aligns with diversity and inclusion strategy, right? So I think it's really competitive advantage and revenue growth, supports our TELUS brand, and it amplifies our business because increased competition, well, it improves, right, opportunities in our bottom line. And at the end of the day, investing, because these diverse suppliers tend to be on the smaller side, right? So investing in smaller companies with large potential gives us, future competitive advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. And just going back to that point about bottom line, because you gave a couple of stats actually during the presentation there. One of them was that TELUS had given 5% of pre-tax profits to charity.
Yeah.
And am I right in saying that you secured 14% of new business as a result of that? Because you also mentioned some other stats, I can't remember where it was from, where if you effectively spend 1 million, then you get 3 million back. So that's the multiplier we're talking about here.
Yes. So there's two things, right? So yes, if you do, so this is according to a Hackett Group study, right? That says that if you spend 1 million, of operational costs on your supplier diverse, you get 3 million or 3.6 million, right, back. So it really pays off, right? So these are studies from that, and yes, I mean we spent 5% of our pre-tax profit, and these are the returns that we got, which is phenomenal. In terms of not only as a company that we have a strong social purpose, that we gave $85 million to charity, but we also get something in return, right? ROI is associated to that, so it's a win-win for both.
Yeah, exactly. It's rare to see a win-win where you see such a positive social outcome and you see such a positive business outcome as well.
Absolutely.
So I mean, you've mentioned this, I suppose, but apart from that, that bottom line benefit to business, what are the benefits of, or what are the key benefits of diverse and inclusive sourcing chains?
Yeah, I think there are a few. I think leveraging diverse organizations, it also helps from a diversity of thoughts and innovation, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's number one. We often find that diverse businesses can be more flexible, right? Responsive, innovative, and more personal to deal with, right, than your tier one vendors. And they are more open to provide us with business continuity solutions. So it could be your secondary source of product or services. So I think that's one. Two is we also leverage reciprocity where possible and collaborate with small business team to diverse vendors that can also take advantage of our business product and service in addition to leveraging theirs. So again, it's a win-win framework by having that. So again, going back to what I mentioned from commercial sense, right, tying it into the bottom line, but it also reflects the overall organization culture, and and how you want to set the tone. So other than it makes a commercial sense, it drives innovation, it drives agility, because these small vendors tend to be small to medium-sized companies that can think differently, or or challenge you differently, right, in a different way. They can be more agile. So I think these are some of the things what from a benefit perspective of including diverse suppliers in your supply chain.
Yeah, I mean, listening to you and listening to so many of the people we've had, speaking at this event, there doesn't seem to be a downside to this, or am I missing something? Is there a downside to having this, this diversity?
I can't think of any. I think the only thing is, I think it's just helping the diverse suppliers to bringing them, equal access to work with, big corporations. I think there's more downsides maybe, for them, because they have to deal with all the logistics from a, big corporation that can, bring to them. But yeah, I think it's a win-win for both.
It certainly seems to be, yeah. I mean, I can't see any negatives. It does seem to be a win-win.
Yeah.
Okay, just one final question, Mariam. Now, you talked about purpose there, and purpose is a word that I'm hearing a lot right now from large global organizations.
Yeah.
Do you feel that it's being overused at all, or even abused, this word purpose? It feels like it's almost like a bit of a soundbite for some companies.
I think we're going to hear a lot more about purpose than before, and I think even that pandemic, right, makes it even more important to ensure that we are delivering right on our purpose. I think we're seeing that our customers are asking, right, and they're willing to pay more for a company that has a purpose or has associated corporate objectives with purpose. So I think the generations are changing, and they're smarter, I would say, right, in terms of their way of buying, which makes it I think great for organizations to rethink, right, the way that they promote and sell their product, and how they talk to their customers, right?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's probably a good place to leave it. I think we all agree that the world has changed somewhat, and let's hope it has changed, for the better in many, many ways. So Mariam, thank you so much for your time today and for your presentation.
My pleasure. Again, Scott, thank you for having me.